Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker has been a real estate appraiser in Naples since 1986, and she's been a member of NABOR for over 15 years, and she holds the SRA designation conferred by the Appraisal Institute. When she speaks, I sit up a little straighter and pay a little more attention. Ladies and gentlemen, from Carroll and Carroll, Real Estate Appraisers and Consultants, Cindy Carroll.
Thank you. Okay, so Brad and Dr. Yoon covered everything I was going to say today. So I think you should just go back to the snacks. Some of you will remember, and some of you won't, that I was here in 2019, and I stood here in wrapping up my comments and said that my best guess was that we would see the next top of the economic cycle in 2022. At that point in time, no one could see or predict what was coming. No one. And the first element was COVID, which we all remember very well. And I can remember in the summer of 2019, actually the summer of 2020, thinking that it was all over for us, that our real estate market was just going to collapse. We're all going to be out of jobs. It was a disaster in the proportion that we'd never experienced before. And then, around the fall of 2020, everything seemed to shift quite dramatically at first. And by November of 2020, we started seeing property values increase at incredible rates. We'd never experienced this. This is all new to us. And inventories dropped to levels like they've never dropped before. We can even go back and look at 2005, when many realtors said to me, "This will never happen again." I said, "Don't say that." But our inventories dropped to such levels where in some neighborhoods we had less than a month of supply for long periods of time. And we were documenting market advancement rates, a consistent 3% per month compounded. That was like the norm. And in some areas, we documented up to 8% per month and higher. I've never seen that happen before. COVID brought us buyers from parts of the country that we've never experienced. Crime in the cities, lockdown state situations, high taxes, high property costs, and all kinds of political concerns greased the skids to bring them here, coupled with mortgage interest rates around 3%. We've never seen that either. When I got my first mortgage, it was 13.75%. I had to have a home, I had to pay the ticket. There really wasn't an option. We have all grown comfortable with 5 or 6%. Even 8% at times has been okay. So with the interest rates where they are today, I don't really see that as being a problem or a barricade to the movement of our market at all. Those who were fortunate enough to get in on a 3% rate, that was really good timing for them. And it might be hard to move on after that, but at the same time, I think it provided housing for a lot of folks who otherwise might not have had it. So that's a good thing. So we talked a little bit about interest rates. Those have been covered really well. You know, we're hovering a little bit over 7 right now. So the propulsion in our market came from the high demand, the low inventory, and the low interest rates. And it created this perfect storm in our economy locally. So we rode through the end of 2020, all through 2021, and as appraisers, the first step in our process of making an appraisal was to figure out what was the market advancement rate in that given neighborhood and community, because it was all over the place. Every new file we picked up, we extracted a new market advancement rate. A great portion of the time of just processing that assignment was in figuring out what the market was doing. Then in the spring of 2022, that all calmed down. Now, it wasn't immediately apparent to the broad market, that timing of it. As appraisers, we were watching for it constantly because that market uptick had already gone on longer than historically. That was a very long run-up. But we knew, or we felt, that it was going to have to come to an end at some point. And several factors came together at that time. That's about the time the interest rates jumped up to around 7%, although that is not so critical in our market where we have mostly cash buyers. It's still an element. So we were watching. And as we got to about June of 22, we became pretty certain that that rapid increase in value had stopped. And then when we had that hindsight, we looked over our shoulder to try to pinpoint exactly when. That pin started dropping in places like the end of March of 22. But for some neighborhoods, it was as early as the end of December of 21. It's not all the same. So rapid increase in value comes to a halt. It was pretty abrupt. But in the mind of the seller, what is the market still doing? Like a rocket. Like a rocket. In the mind of some maybe new real estate professionals to our community, right? Because if you don't have some history, it's hard to get a gut feeling about where you are in a market cycle. So we stopped that appreciation, that market advancement rate, we stopped it and carried on. And then what are we watching for? Market correction. Because historically, a market correction follows a peak. It can be a big deal or maybe not. If you go back, way back to 1989 and 1990, there was a market correction, but it primarily affected Port Royal and Aqualane, didn't affect the rest of the community. When we look back at 92 through 96, that market was very, very flat. So I'm watching this and I'm like, but then I'm like, well, wait a minute. We've just gone through an extraordinary market experience with higher rates of appreciation than we've ever seen, lower inventories than we've ever seen. Why should that be followed by a typical market phenomena? So then I'm like, I don't think this is going to be normal. This will be something new. And so at that point, while my gut is telling me I got to wait for the other shoe to drop because it's going to happen, everything I see in the market statistics is telling me no, it's not going to happen. So I'm still watching our numbers, and I have yet to find, and you guys are in the field, on the ground, you may be seeing this, and if you are, I want you to come tell me. But I have yet to find a strong indication of a widespread market decline. Here and there, I'll see a property that's sold in 21 and might be selling currently for a little bit less. but nothing widespread. I'm still watching for it. A year ago, we've survived the COVID thing. We're surviving the interest rate increases. Our market is just cruising along. Nobody really knows what's going on. We don't want to really trust this new comfort level. And what happens? We have the storm surge that's been promised to us for over a decade. Remember, the media has said storm surge, and we're like, nah. So I remember the prior storm surge from 1960 with Hurricane Donna. I remember that one. And I can remember being carried across the street by my father 2 blocks from the beach when the water was up about here on his leg. Now, Naples wasn't what it is in 1960. That storm surge was not like this last storm surge. That was a devastating event for many people. And I'm just going to focus on Collier County because we know that Lee County, parts of it were destroyed. And there are so many people that are still trying to get their feet on the ground. In the Naples area, for the most part, the properties that were damaged beyond being able to salvage were obsolete structures that needed to go. Forgive me. They needed to go. They had been needing to go for a long time. And I'm talking about the old houses in Moorings and Park Shore. It had been a long time since that structure had made a positive contribution to value. It was all about the land. We can get in a car and go look at some of them now, and you can go, oop, that needs to go, that needs to go, that needs to go. But look along our beach, because the same thing happened in the beach and bay condo market. The same thing. We still have condominiums that are in a holding pattern whose residents want to move back in, but it's not yet possible. Elevator problems, fire problems, all kinds of problems. We still have buildings that got back on their feet right away, but are still repairing their garages, their pools, their landscaping. And as a consequence, many that are benefiting from renovation. And that's going to be a wonderful thing in the market because we're going to have a lot of buildings with fresh and new common areas that are going to show very well. And so for them, it's a bonus. But then we have these projects that were sitting on the ground, should have been torn down a long time ago, and now, for FEMA reasons and others, they're going to disappear. Some of them already have. The one that we're most familiar with, the sale, happened before the storm, and that was Mansion House, which I think is now Rosewood. An incredible sale, over $165 million for that beachfront tract. But I very quickly found 4 others that have sold in the last 12 months, starting with the Executive Club, which is an older Bayside, which went for $60 million. Gulf Shore Colony for $83 million. Park Place for $30 million. And the most recent is Ocean Terrace for $16 million. As soon as the storm came through, the buzzards started circling because they've been drooling about our beach and our bay for a very long time. So they swooped in, and there were so many offers on these properties, multiple offers. And this is just the beginning. There's others out there cooking right now, I'm sure. The part of Gulf Shore Boulevard that's south of Doctors Pass, from Doctors Pass down to the new Four Seasons, is going to change in character. And I think the result is going to be that we have this most exclusive row of new condos and villas with incredible price tags, and it will create a new sub-neighborhood. I think that's what's coming. So the redevelopment that came from the storm was simply overdue. And it is the positive result of that that we can look to as a benefit. The new construction that's going to take place on those properties is going to infuse a lot of money into our economy, put a lot of people to work, and bring new buyers. Something very similar to that happened after Hurricane Donna in 1960, when we had an infusion of insurance money, workers came to town, and right after that, we started seeing the first of the condominium buildings go up. Now, so here we are today in this market that is doing nothing, just coasting and creeping along. But of course, we're standing here in September, and we can't ever tell in September what's coming in October or November. We can't. It makes me mad, drives me crazy. And things could be very different right now than we even know, because it'll take 3 months before I can look back and say, oh, okay, I get it now, I get it. But where we are today, compared to pre-COVID, is that our median single-family home price has gone from about $400,000 to up over $700,000. And the condominium has gone from about $250,000 up to almost $500,000. That's a huge leap, a huge leap. The inventory in 2019 for the single-family homes was 7.3 months. Nice, stable, steady. But in August, the stats tell us that the single-family inventory is about 4 months. Nothing to complain about. Nothing to complain about. We have seen market cycles where the single-family inventory never got down that low. So we're still setting some new records. The lowest for that single-family inventory turned up in 2021, September 2021, at 1.4 months of inventory. That's like almost nothing. That's market-wide. The condo inventory in 2019 was 6.9 months. In 2021, it fell to less than 1 month. Less than 1 month. And now it's sitting at about 3 months of inventory. That is a very tight inventory. What's puzzling me probably more than anything else right now is how can we have such a very tight local inventory and not see those values going up strongly? My most recent analyst tells me that we've probably returning back to our normal historical increase in value, which runs about 8% per year, 8 to 10% per year. If you go back and you look at long-term sales histories, this is an extremely consistent rate of 8 to 10% annually. And so I'm already seeing some markets that are settling back into that. Now, so maybe there's not going to be a correction, because I think if there was going to be one, it would have happened by now. We're 18 months out of the top of the market. So maybe we're heading into a long period of stabilized market. And the last time we had that was back 92 to 96, where we had an extended period of a stabilized market. If the interest rates do slip down 6%, that'll turn things up for us a little bit. That'll be good. Put a little bit more inventory into our market. That would be good. If we go into this protracted, extended, long-term stability, it won't be fun for you guys, because that can sometimes become the doldrums. It's great for real estate appraisers, because then if we're making an appraisal 3 years from now, we can just go back 3 years and get a sale because nothing's happening. And that's the way it was, 92 to 96. So I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to talk about some of our specific communities, just to get a look at what's going on. These are random, it's communities I have been following for decades, no rhyme or reason to it, but it does kind of give us a complexion across the market. So right now, Port Royal sits at about 11 months of supply. Back in September of 19, it was balanced, and I declare a market balanced when the number of sales in the last 12 months is equal to the number of current listings. So I'm looking at a 12-month cycle. In September of 22, Port Royal fell to 4.7 months. So you can see in 1 year, it's more than doubled its inventory. But you know, I used to look at Port Royal and point to it and say, that's the barometer, that tells us what the rest of the market's going to do. Not anymore. Port Royal does its own thing. If you're going to work in Port Royal, you got to know Port Royal, but don't draw any conclusions about the rest of the market based on Port Royal. That has more shift to moorings, Park Shore area, in my opinion. That's more of the market barometer today. Now, Aqualane Shores, God bless it. Aqualane Shores is one of the 3 markets I tracked that historically oversupplies before everybody else. It's happened over and over and over again. And I've been carrying these stats since about 97. Some of you weren't even born. So right now today, Aqualane has 1.6 years of inventory. That is not good at all. It would be important to break that down by price range and see which price range maybe is more oversupplied than others. A year ago, it was about 8 months of inventory. That was okay. In 2019, it was 10.7 months of inventory. So I did look at that oversupply and I said, well, let's just see how much of that is new construction. Because I'm thinking that could be it. In the new construction market, and this is like qualified by new construction, under construction, pre-construction, there are 11 active listings and only 3 sales in the last 12 months. So on a first glance, I'd go, that could be the problem right there. Because in that new construction market, it suggests almost 4 years of supply at the last 12 months absorption rate. This is nothing new. I have seen this happen over and over and over in Aqualane. But the word is out to those who work in Aqualane is be very careful. Be very careful and watch this. It could get worse. If you take a listing, you've got to price it properly or it will go nowhere. Royal Harbor is sitting with 8.4 months of supply. A year ago, it was only 3.6 months. And in 2019, it was 10.4 months. I call it the Lake Park neighborhood. It actually stretches from Pine Ridge all the way down. It's area 15 in the MLS. That market went berserk and continues to go. I grew up in Lake Park. It was like out of town, workforce housing, affordable housing, and now I drive through there and my head just spins. So that market is still very much in demand. It has 3.5 months of inventory. A year ago, it was 2.3 months. And in September of 2019, it was 4.5 months. So you can see listings come on, listings turn over. Still a lot of new construction going on in that neighborhood. In the Old Naples single-family home market, there's about 5 months of inventory. Nothing to be alarmed about. In September of 2022, that was 2.2 months of supply, very tight. In September 2019, it was 7 months of inventory. We're in a better place today than we were in 2019. And in the Old Naples condo market, that was the condo market. The single-family home market is at 6.8 months. A year ago, 3 months. And in 2019, it was 9.3 months. And back in 2019, I was watching that thinking it might go to a full 12 months. Creighton Road area, single-family homes, NA05, we're sitting at 6.7 months of inventory. I'm watching that. In 3 months' time, I want to look at that again and see where we are. In September 22, it was 5.6 months, not very different. In 2019, it was 8.2 months. I'm kind of expecting most of these to trend back to their 2019 numbers. The condominium market in NA05, right now, about 6 months of inventory. And that market is still a little messed up because there are some buildings who have no listings, have had no sales in the last 12 months since the storm. Some buildings still trying to get themselves back together. Some buildings trying to figure out what they're going to do from here on out. FEMA issues, money issues, City of Naples issues. So we have some players absent from that market, but the result of that is that if you have a building that's got itself back together, very, very low special assessments, and the damage was just really ground floor, and you have a nice apartment in that with a good view, and it's all fixed up, coastal modern, boom. Those fly off the shelf, properly priced, of course. A year ago, that market, that NA05 condo market, had only 1.6 months of inventory. And in 2019, it had 6.7 months of inventory. Pelican Bay single-family homes, 6.5 months right now. A year ago, 2.2 months, and in 2019, 10.8 months. Everything in 2019 was positioning itself to flatten out completely. The Pelican Bay condos right now have 3.8 months of inventory. A year ago, it was less than 1 month, and in 2019, it was 8.1 months. Pine Ridge sits with 8.4 months. Pine Ridge sometimes gets on the train with Aqualane and oversupplies. Pine Ridge has kind of gone through a metamorphosis. Lots of new construction. That neighborhood's looking better, complexion's changing. It's high, dry land, which has become very popular. So it's sitting at 8.4 months, and a year ago it was at 9 months. In 2019, September, it was 1.4 years. That Golden Gate Estates area that's made up of the Oaks and Logan corridors, very popular. The land is high up there, mostly. People think it is, at least. In 2023, September, it was 5.4 months of supply. A year ago, it was 5.7, and in September of 19, it was 4.9. The popularity and demand of that area just continues to persist. It keeps creeping closer into town. no golf course, no fees, and a lot of freedom, and a lot of people are looking for that. Gray Oaks is sitting at 3.4 months. In September of 22, it was 3.8 months. In September of 2019, it was 1.5 years. Vineyards, this is interesting to me. 1.3 months of supply, 1.3 months of supply. 1 year ago was 1.7 months of supply. You see that? In September 2019, it was 5.5 months. Now, I have been told many times that there are new homeowners in places like the Vineyards and other communities whose homes or condos on the beach were damaged and are in the process of being put back together, and that there were buyers who moved out and bought homes because they don't want to leave the community and they want to be in the community for a while all that's going on. I don't know if that's the factor that's affecting the Vineyards or not. It could be. But I think this is a very interesting thing that's going on there. Of course, in the Vineyards, you don't have to be in the club. You got a club, you can drive by, you can look at it, you got beautiful landscaping, boulevards, but you don't have to pay for it. Bonus. That could be affecting it, and you're close into town. Vanderbilt Beach, single family home. Vanderbilt is on the same bus with Aqua Lane and Pine Ridge, okay? 1.5 years of inventory right now. Be very careful. Be very careful up there. Now, I haven't dissected that inventory. There could be a whole lot of water damaged homes sitting in the single family category that maybe really belong in the land category. That happens. Put them in the land category, please. That's what they are. And so I haven't looked. I'm going to look into that to see, is it a price range? Is it a property type? What's pushing it over the edge? So I thought, well, maybe it's new construction, like Aqua Lane. No. Well, a little. So there are 4 active listings in that new construction category and 0 sales in the last 12 months. I haven't looked at those new construction listings. Those could in fact be homes that are being built on lots where the house got flooded. They may not be finished yet. Then we would be okay with that. A year ago, it had 6 months of inventory, and in 2019, it had 9.8 months. Collier's Reserve sits at 2.8 months of inventory. A year ago, it was 1.7 months, and in 2019, it was balanced. Quail West is at 3.5 months. A year ago, it had less than 1 month, and in 2019, it was 9.5 months. Quail Creek sitting at 6.4 months, 2022, 3.4, and 2019, 7.3. Imperial Golf Estates, here's another one of those neighborhoods. Golf course community, but you don't have to be a member. Right now, only 2 months of inventory. Big lots, nice neighborhood. A year ago, it was 2.5 months of inventory. It's gone down. In 2019, it was 4.2 months. Lakewood, this is crazy, 2.9 months right now. That's East Naples. I think there's a whole lot of people who've come to town that don't know anything about East Naples. Let's see if after 100 years, we could shake off that stigma. Because it was, you cross the bridge, that's where the poor folks live. That's where I came from. So 2.9 months. That is down from 3.6 months from a year ago. In 19, it was 2.7 months. Now, 2 entry-level neighborhoods. I thought, historically, when the market goes up, if it's going to correct, it starts going up in the high price brackets. And if that trend is sustained long enough, it reaches all the way down to the most entry level housing. Some of you may remember back in 2005, I can remember sitting at lunch with my brother and I said, look, the end is near. And he said, how do you know that? I said, because rental apartment complexes are being converted to condominiums and sold. I said, that's it. It's over. And it was. Because when you start seeing that kind of thing happen, then you know it's over. So I watched Naples Manor in Golden Gate City, close in, entry-level housing. Because there may be a sign there, because the last to come up is often the first to go down. In Naples Manor, there's 3.5 months of inventory. And 1 year ago, it was less than 2 months. And in 2019, it was 3.1 months. I look at my chart for Naples Manor, and it's just like 3 months or less for years. Once we climbed out of the Great Recession, that market went into a shortage of inventory and has stayed there for more than 10 years now. Golden Gate City, right now, 3.6 months of inventory. A year ago, it was 1.8 months. And in September of 2019, it was 2.7 months. This is just not changing. And in the meantime, that price of that house, which was $250,000, has gone up to $4 or more. And yet there we are. Naples Park. Why are you laughing about Naples Park? You know, Naples Park has always been on the list of neighborhoods I'm never going to live in. You know, that was a sad community that got platted and started developing way back in the 50s, and unfortunately, the developer did not provide any infrastructure. No water, no sewer, no drainage, nothing. And so Naples Park has had to go back and get community development districts and put infrastructure in where they didn't have any. It's just a neighborhood with grid streets and little tiny lots and multifamily housing mixed in it. But it's west of 41. And then Mercado came out of the ground, and then it was downtown, right? So right now, and then the whole VRBO craziness went on, and I guess still goes on. Right now, there's 9.7 months of inventory in Naples Park. Watch out, Naples Park. A year ago, it was 3.4 months. So it's gone up a lot. In September of 2019, it was 4.3 months. Now, that's the factor that should concern you a great deal, because as we've gone through this, we've seen parallels with 2019. But we don't see it here. So be very careful in Naples Park. Something's happening there. Okay, so this is my last page. You're welcome. The question is, where do we go from here? Well, I'm going to go home this afternoon. And I'm going to think this all over and continue to try my best to come up with an answer to that question, because I don't know. I think it's hard to stand here in September and give any kind of an answer to that question, because this is the low part of the cycle. So I see this type inventory in a lot of areas, and I think, well, that's good. I see the interest rates that I think pretty sure are going to slip down a little bit, and that's good. Apparently, the demand is still out there strongly, and that's good. So I just don't see right now on the horizon any cause for concern about a market correction, a widespread market correction. The factors just don't seem to be there at all. My best guess is that we are in a period of stability that probably started over a year ago, like over 18 months ago. The question is, how long is that going to continue? And I don't know. I think we need to get through the election year. I think the interest rates need to tick down a little. And then we just got to see. And who can predict the future? If this was 2022, I'd be standing here talking to you, and the next day would be the storm surge. Nobody can predict the future. I'm going to continue to watch it very carefully. I'm going to be excited to see where we are 3 months from now and see what kind of track we're on. And when I get it all figured out, I'll let you know, and I'll be selling tickets.